When it comes to marketing, I prefer to not guess at what's going to work, and I'd rather know what's going to work before I get started. I would also like to craft offers based off of what's going to sell versus off what's in my brain. And what I mean by that is, instead of putting everything in my brain into one program and saying, here's everything you get, what I would like to do is intentionally take certain elements of what I know, put it into an offer that's going to be irresistible, that is in alignment with what my messaging is saying. And I'm also choosing messaging that I already know works because I'm paying attention to my audience's behavior. The way in which we build businesses today, how I build a course, how I build a coaching program today is completely different from how I did it 8 to 10 years ago. 8 to 10 years ago, I probably did it the way that most of you are doing it now. That doesn't work. There's a reason why I don't do that anymore, because it's extremely hard, difficult, and a long process if you make it at all. What I would rather do is figure out what's going to be effective, what actually works, what's going to be irresistible, and then let's launch that after we have the data that tells us what's going to work. So what I wanted to do is break down the 4-step process of what we've been able to do and use to build 4 different products that have done over $1 million in sales in the last 4 years. I'm really proud of that accomplishment. I didn't even realize or recognize that I'd even done it until I was looking back at what we were able to do. And again, I was living with my in-laws, completely broke, about 8 years ago. And at one point, $40,000 in debt. And it's been a journey because I started a family and a business at the same time. It has not been easy. And I didn't have a lot of podcasts like this back then. There weren't a lot of people teaching. It was like brand new. It was like rare for someone to even do $1 million launch back then. It was like I remember the first person that did it, and everyone was just like, minds were blown. And now it's almost like a norm for a lot of people. And a lot has changed. And so what I want to do is make you guys aware of what doesn't work or what could make it a hard path, and hopefully make that path easier for you. I want to give you my guidance, my mentorship, and teach from my experience in this episode. And so that's it. I hope you enjoy. Let me know what you think.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
All right. Hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about business building. We're going to talk about how to build a business, how to make some sales. There's a lot changing over the last, there has been a lot changing over the last 2 years. I got started in this business 8 years ago. No, actually longer than that, 10 years ago. And it was just a different market. In fact, I was talking to James Wedmore today, and he was talking about like how a lot of his students in different countries, are doing really well. Like they're selling really well, selling very easily, getting a lot of people to show up to their live events, and conversion rates are good. Show up rates are really good. But it's really interesting because they're in countries where like this online marketing space has not really been a thing, and it's becoming a thing. So, they're like the only fish in a big pond. And so they're just like unbelievable numbers that you just don't see anymore. However, in like places like Australia or the UK or Canada or United States, it's been around for a while, so it's a little oversaturated. And when things become oversaturated, we have to change the way in which we do stuff, in which, the way we market, the way we grow businesses, the way we craft messaging, the way we create content. It has to change. And the biggest reason why is because and it's very simple, when everyone's doing the same thing, everyone's teaching the same thing, and everyone's saying the same thing, or the audience perceives it to be the same, then you just blend in and you don't really get any business. And so for the longest time, especially when I first got started, it was actually really easy, because there weren't a lot of experts. You can kind of craft an offer or a course and then talk about it, teach that subject, and you would do really well. So, when I was a YouTube expert, I think back then it was just myself and James teaching YouTube online. I think there might've been a couple other people like, Gideon Shelwick. I remember he was teaching YouTube back then for a while as well, and some other people. And, over the years, a lot more people started becoming YouTube experts, and now none of us actually teach it anymore. And there's different people out there teaching it. But the point is like a lot of the stuff that I teach now when it comes to messaging, communication, and titles and content, I wasn't even doing back then because I didn't have to. But now when you have, 100 YouTube experts, you have to be different. You have to communicate different. You have to discover things that other people haven't discovered so you can teach things that other people haven't taught. You have to learn how to communicate differently. Back then, I could literally do everything I tell you not to do today, and we were fine. I had six-figure business, multiple six-figure actually. And that was selling like a $200 to $300 product without a lot of ad spend. It was just like put up YouTube videos and content and teach what I know about YouTube and then do a webinar, and bam, people would come and they would buy. So the process back then was very much like create your course, create your curriculum, put everything together based off your knowledge and your skills, and then roll with it. Go ahead and market it and talk about the benefits they're going to get, talk about like the outcomes they're going to get. And it worked pretty well. You didn't have to understand really the problems or anything like that. I mean, it was helpful if you did, but it wasn't a requirement. I believe today it is a requirement. I think in today's day and age, you do. But also what I want to talk about today is the process of how to actually build a product out quickly and how to do it effectively and how to do it so it's not going to take you years. And it actually goes a little bit backwards than the way that we used to do it back then. So again, back then was like, take your knowledge, put it in a course, put free content out, and then go and buy it. The process for me is a little bit differently now. It works a little bit differently now. And I don't think a lot of people actually understand this. I think, let me explain the process and then I'll explain where most people go wrong with it. So the way that I like to look at it now is I am very clear on my knowledge, my skills, and what I do. And I tell our students to do the same thing. What are you good at? What's in the course? But it doesn't mean everything needs to go into the course. Then what we do is we start to look at the problems that those things solve, and then we start there. So we start creating content around the problems. We start creating content around the mistakes that are causing the problems. We start putting out content on the mistakes that they do to try to fix the problems that don't work. And we also go after industry norms that don't really work anymore. Things that people think is normal, but are normal, but just don't really work anymore. And we start crafting content around that. And I'll give you guys a couple examples so you understand how it works. So if I was, a problem my audience has is they can't create engaging content. Let's just go without. That's just one of the problems. So a lot of my content now be things like 5 signs that you have content doomed for going unnoticed, or 5 ways to create engaging content. There's two different pieces of content there. Another one could be how course creators can create engaging content in 5 minutes a day or less. And again, I'm putting things like identity in there, stemming off the problem. Another one, how-to content could be the worst way to create engaging content. That is a thought reversal topic. But just right there off the top of my head, I just bam, 4 pieces of content that I can roll with. And those are all off of problems. And so what I would do, and this is what we do, is I literally put out content, episodes like this, different things on Instagram that do stem from problems. They come and are rooted from the problem. So anytime I even do a how-to piece of content, the only reason I'm even doing that is because it came from a problem at some point. And so when we start to do that, start to put out this content, all I'm doing is I'm literally looking at what's going to work. And I feel like a broken record. I say this all the time. Look at what's going to work. What is resonating? Look at the behavior of your audience. What's resonating? What are they liking the most? What are they watching the most? What are they commenting on the most? Which piece of content has the best call to action that they follow the most? And the answers will literally come up right in front of you. Okay. So you start to build an audience, you get all of this data, but the thing that I look at, the thing that I start to look at from there is how do I craft the messaging based off the data I'm getting? And how do I create an offer off of the messaging? And most people have it backwards. Most people create the product or the program or the course first, and then they ask, how do I do the messaging around this? What I'm saying is put all your stuff out there, let the data tell you what is resonating, what's not, and then craft an offer based off the data. one of the easiest ways to build a 6 or 7 figure company right now is it sounds very simple. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it's a very easy process once you get into it. The hardest part is just figuring out what's resonating. And sometimes that can take some time. But I'm telling you right now that if you're trying to design a product and you're putting everything in it and then you try to market it, it's going to be really hard because when you put everything you know into a course, there's so many different things you can talk about it. Not all of it's going to land with your audience. And so doesn't it make more sense to just put out what's on your mind and what's based off of problems, because that's where your audience is at, fine tune it, and then craft something based off their behavior that says what they want. Now, I want to be very clear on something. When I say not all your knowledge needs to go into the course or the program, it can, but the offer will change. And as we get deeper in this episode, you'll understand what that means. Meaning that you could have, let's just call it 4 sections in your course. And you're like, this is everything I need. But let's say the messaging leads you down this path and it's based off of one pain point. And you realize you only need 3 of those pillars to really solve that problem for someone. Great. Sell them the 3 pillars. And you know what you do with the 4th one? You make it a bonus. And once they get inside the program, it's still going to be 4 pillars or 4 sections they have to go through. But the way you framed it and positioned it in the offer to the person completely changed to make it a little bit more of a no-brainer. Okay. So again, it all starts because of the messaging and what's working and the content that's working. Again, this is exactly how we've done 7-figure launches, built multiple courses that have done 7 figures. It's following this process. I don't want to keep on guessing at certain things. And so what I want to do in this episode is go through the I want to go through the 4 phases of what I would do if I was starting all over again. But I just did a workshop recently and I did a 2-hour workshop, went through each one of these in detail. I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of each one, but here's why I'm doing this. For those of you who don't know, I know there should be an ad on this podcast at some point, but my buddy James Wedmore has a program called Business by Design. And what he does inside Business by Design, which is now open for enrollment, is he goes through the 5 systems you need for any business. And those systems are everything from like sales and marketing to fulfillment, offer creation, all that stuff. So it's going to bring you through the 5 things that you need to do. What I'm going to be doing, if you decide to enroll in this program, is I'm going to be doing a 6-week. And to be honest with you, it's probably going to be closer to 8 weeks, because if I don't finish or get you guys to a point that I like within the 6 weeks, we add some extra weeks on there. But it's a boot camp that I'm going to do absolutely for free if you join James Wedmore's program through us. So if you just go to brandonlucero.com/BBD, again, that's brandonlucero.com/BBD, then that should take you to the sales page. Or you can just go to Instagram and send me a DM and I can get you the link as well. But we're going to give you that boot camp absolutely for free. We're also going to do a call walking you through how to craft really effective ads. We're going to break down the psychology of our best performing ads, why they work, so you can replicate it in your business. My team will make a video for you. We have so many bonuses that we're giving you absolutely for free if you enroll in his program. But the reason why I want to do this episode is to give you a little demonstration of what we're going to be doing over these 6 to 8 weeks together. And hopefully get you to a point where you're making sales pretty consistently, getting you to that level of where you're at. So the goal would be, if you're at 0, to get you to like 50 to 50, on a path to be doing 50 to 100,000. If you're already at 100,000, the goal would be to get you to that $500,000. And if you're at $500,000, what we show you can get you to that $1 million mark. So here's the way that we structure all the successful courses that we've ever done. Okay. By the way, obviously you guys know that I teach messaging, and that's what all my programs do. This is the only opportunity you have for me to work with me on actually business building. So everything is around messaging. This is business building. So we can talk about hiring, delegating, systems, processes, all that stuff. So how have I built a business that frees me up, doesn't require all of my time, but continues to grow? So we're going to talk about all of that stuff in that bonus package. Okay. So with that being said, there's 4 steps that I go through. Number 1 is called the expansive niching process, which we'll talk about here in a second. The next one is profitable messaging discovery. We'll talk about that. high converting sales mechanism, and then the subconscious close. Those are the 4 elements that we focus on in order to start building really effective businesses, online businesses, course-based businesses, or courses. So let's talk about the expansive niching process. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one. And the reason why is we actually have an entire podcast episode that you can go through right now on this podcast. And it's a couple episodes back that goes into more detail. So I'm going to go through the very simple way to do it, but also talk about what this is not. So what most people do when it comes to niching is they just do this blind guessing testing thing where they pick a category of a category of a category. So they say, I'm a yoga teacher. I want to work with men and and I need to niche down. So men with back pain. And it's like all you're doing is you're picking a category of a category of a category. And although I do like the fact that they went after back pain, you don't have to pick like, a gender or age group or anything unless you really want to. But what I want to do is break down an expansive way of doing this. It's very similar, but it's also very different. And the way in which we do it, it keeps it very expansive. So instead of putting yourself in a box where you're like, I'm going to be a life coach for stay-at-home moms who have 3 boys and a girl, what I'm going to do is show you in a very expansive way to get very granular on who you're talking about, very niche down on who you're talking to, but also be very clear and concise on who you're talking to, but be very expansive in the messaging, meaning you're not going to be put in a box with the messaging. So again, we don't want to go category to category to category. So what we're going to do is we're going to first start with the problems. So you have to understand that your audience is going through a problem. That's the only reason why they're going to buy from you. They're going through a problem. You're going to solve that problem. But a lot of people talk about the solution and they're not ready for the solution yet. So, for example, if you're a, life coach or something like that, and like someone has a limiting belief and it's a trauma-based belief and they have to heal their past trauma or something. You can't go to your industry. So let's just say it's business owners and say, hey, if you want to break past that plateau that you have, revenue plateau, you got to heal your past trauma. They're gonna be like, the hell are you talking about? So what we would do is we would say something like, hey, if you've been stuck at 6 figures in revenue and for 6 months and you can't break past it, I'm willing to bet you've brought on 3 different consultants in the past 6 months and you tried 2 different strategies and nothing's worked. And if you have, the reason why you're doing that is because you ran out of creative ideas on what to do. You ran out of creative ideas on how to fix it. You lost the motivation to try to get down in the trenches and figure it out yourself. And have you ever asked yourself why you're doing that? And then you just keep going below and below and below until you finally get to the trauma side of it. So you would say, I'm willing to bet, the reason why you're not doing that is because you have this pattern when things get hard, you just kind of hunker down and you don't really put out the amount of effort. Have you realized that pattern has happened in your life more and more and more and more, or in different areas besides business? Did you know that 90% of the reason why this is happening inside of people is because of an unhealed past trauma? So now what we did is we just went layer, and we bridged all the way down. And the way we do that is by, again, starting with the problem, and then you can move your way to the actual real solution. And what happens with most people is they want to talk about the solution in the beginning, and we can't do that. So in the expansive niching process, we literally just figure out what their problems are. And some of this will take time to tweak and trial and error, and we'll figure it out over time. But you should at least try to guess at what the problems are if you don't know what they are. And we want to get specific. And then you want to go after their identity. And this doesn't have to be like a niched down identity. This could literally be man, woman, human. It doesn't matter. Just a term that they would identify as that you want to use. For me, that's course creators. And then their values. And when you are clear on the problems that someone has, the identity they have, and their values, that becomes your niche. So for me, here's my niche. You are in my niche if you are a course creator identity who has been posting really good content that can help people, but it goes unnoticed, problem. And it's frustrating because you have a purpose and you just want to make a change in the world and it feels like you can't. Value. So that is my niche. Someone who is a course creator, has really good content, but it's not getting seen, and they are frustrated because they want to make some sort of change in the world. They're purpose driven. That's the value. That becomes my niche. And now I'm not stuck down in some category of a category. I'm not stuck in like a messaging expert category or something like that. I'm open to talk about whatever I want because I'm speaking to that person. That is my niche. That is my person. And again, if the problems are accurate, you will stay within the realm of what you do. Meaning that if I talk about messaging, all my problems will still be messaging related. So instead of saying I'm in the messaging field, I just say my person is the person with these problems. And I'm going to create content that is relevant to that person. And it's very expansive in the way we kind of position it and look at. All right, let's move on to number 2, the profitable messaging discovery. So this is the biggest thing for me is I started to realize, one day when I was reading a book and I was just like pulled into the book and it was so good. And it was a nonfiction book. It was around like the psychology of selling or something like that. I can't remember the book's name. And I remember asking myself, like, why am I being pulled into this? And I started to realize like, oh, you know what? I didn't even have to think about whether or not I should be pulled into this, whether or not I liked it. It was an automated reaction of I like this. And so I started to realize, oh man, I do that with everything. I started to read Simon Sinek's book. I was like, this is so good. I love the points he's making. It blew my mind. I was like, why did this blow my mind? And I started to realize that these mind-blowing moments, these like, oh my God, I need to read the next page, or this makes so much sense. Those were not logical conclusions. I did not use logic or my conscious mind to get that answer or come to that conclusion. It was an automatic thing that happened as I consumed the content. And I started to realize, wow, a lot of the decisions that people make to whether they should watch our content, not watch our content, buy from us, not buy from us, stay on the webinar, not stay in the webinar, attend the webinar, not attend the webinar, click on this ad and opt in, or not click on this. All those options are automatic for them. They're not thinking about it, which means it's all about the subconscious, which means we have, in order to find out what subconscious triggers there are, in order to find out what's going to really land and pull people in automatically, we have to look at their behavior. And all of our messaging is based off of their behavior. So one story that kind of reinforced this is when we moved to Flagstaff last year, and all of our stuff was in storage for like 3 months, and the house was being renovated. So we were living in an Airbnb and couldn't have our stuff delivered yet. And all my kids' toys and stuff were, stuck away in storage. And so, every day they're like, Dad, when are our toys going to get here? When are our toys going to get here? I want our toys. I want my toys. I want toys. And I just told them, I don't know. I don't know when your toys are going to get here. And the day finally came and we were able to move into the house, and the delivery came, and it was an all day event, and their toys finally came. And so we opened up their toys. They put it in their rooms. They're so excited, so stoked, playing with their toys all night. Next day, I go outside and what do I see? I see my kids not playing with their toys that they've been bugging me for 3 months. What they had done is they had been playing with the cardboard boxes. They had been building forts and playing with the boxes and tearing them apart and making like little airplane things out of them. I could have been buying them boxes for the last 3 months instead of the toys. They would have been perfectly fine. And so what I have to look at is, what does their behavior tell me they want? Did they really want the toys, or is that just what they thought they wanted? Because when we do survey results, we ask our audience what they want. We're getting the answer of what they think they want, but they don't actually know. And so when I look at what my kids were doing, I had to look at their behavior. So their behavior tells me they either wanted to have something completely new, number one, or they just wanted to be creative and be outside and build. And my kids are like that. They're very artsy. They love arts and crafts. They love painting. They love going outside and building things. And so their behavior tells me they didn't really want more toys to be outside. They wanted something new and to be creative and go build. And so when I now look at okay, what is the best thing to get for my kids? I'm looking at what is their behavior telling me they want? And it's the same thing with the audience. What does their behavior tell you they want? One of the best ways to figure out your messaging is to literally put out content, do it quickly, base it off of problems, and look at what the behavior is telling you they want. That will give you the best messaging out there. The problem is that most people market and create advertising and content for the conscious mind or the logic thinker. Logic tells you, hey, if I add this bonus and give this module and all these videos and all these courses and all these downloads and all these PDFs, people are going to buy because it's so much stuff. Logically, that makes sense. But people don't buy logically. People don't buy consciously. They buy subconsciously. And if we can figure out what those triggers are, then it's going to be a lot better for you. Some of the ways that figure out these triggers is demonstrating and understanding very clearly and very specifically of their problems. When you understand someone's problems and you demonstrate an understanding of the problem, why the problem occurs, what they're doing to fix the problem doesn't work, you get a high level of relevancy. And so let me give you guys an example of what I mean by this. Some of you probably heard this before, but if you, had stomach pain, and I use this example all the time, stomach pain, developed 2 weeks ago, you have no idea why. Starts at 7:30, ends at 8:30 every night, no idea why. You go to 9 doctors and they can't tell you what that pain is. You're probably going to feel discouraged, depressed, not happy. And then you go to the 10th doctor and they take one look at you and they say, oh, let me guess. Stomach pain started about 2 weeks ago, started about 7:30 at night, ends at 8:30 at night. You go, oh my God, yes. What starts to happen is there's an automatic feeling. You don't have to think about it, but an automatic feeling of this person gets me, understands me. They know what's wrong with me. They have the answer. There's also a high level of trust in their ability to solve your problem, even though they never said that they could solve it. They never said they had a solution or a prescription. Now, if that doctor just walked away and said, oh yeah, you have the stomach loop or what, I don't know, whatever, just making up a name here. And they walked away, you're going to chase them down. Doctor, how do you fix this? They didn't say they had the solution, but you're going to chase them down and be like, help me, give me the solution. So what happens is if you want that subconscious, that automated reaction of help me buy, I would need this, I need what you're selling, you have to demonstrate an understanding of the problem and why the problem exists. And the person has to be relate to it. They have to self-identify with it. You have to be hyper relevant to them. And again, we figure out this messaging by testing and tweaking and putting out content. We have a process for that. We talk about it in our programs. Well, that's actually all we do in our programs. And then from there, once you put out the content, you start to figure out what's going to work, what topics are working, what metaphors, counterexamples are working, what analogies are working. For example, the doctor one that I just told you right now, I'm not guessing at that. I know it works. I've been using it on webinars for 24 weeks, probably 30 weeks probably now. I know it works. I tested it. I tweaked it, maneuvered it, right? To figure out, and I looked at the behavior, I looked at the audience, I looked at if it's resonating or not. And I know it does. I know it makes sense. I know it proves the point. So I use it, not guessing at anything. This is how we start to refine our messaging. But what's beautiful about the messaging is the messaging, once you figure out what works, the messaging will dictate the offer. So let me break down another example for you, see how this works. Our NGM Plus program, it has 3 phases to it. Phase 1 is where we literally find everything I'm talking about right now. We test certain things. We have a process for you to go through. We pull out your problems and the 2 types of mistakes you need, the industry norms. We help you piece it together. And the goal is to help you learn while helping you close clients. Okay. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is we figure out the rest of the messaging elements. So your unique solution, your struggling avatar, your thought reversals, all your content topics, how you're going to talk, your terminology, all that stuff. We test it. We figure out what works. Phase 3, now that we know it works, we just plug it into our 7-figure webinar framework. We help craft the webinar with you. We give you our top ad frameworks. We help write the copy, like all that stuff, right? So we plug it into the ads. Now, that's the course of the program. That's NGM Plus. That's the program. Okay. Now, what I do when I craft an offer is I look at everything included in the program and I look at all the elements. So we have one-on-one calls. We have group calls with me. We have phases 1, 2, and 3. We have a VIP day. We have masterminds. I'm literally like, these are all the things that are included in the program. But what I'm going to do is, now that I have all my elements, I'm going to look back and go, Brandon, what topic seems to be hitting right now with your audience? I'm going to look back at my past content. And this is what we did back in September. And I was like, you know what? This teaching people how to create a 7-figure webinar seems to be taking off. Let's do a webinar on how to create 7-figure webinars. So I did. That's what I did. So I crafted the messaging, did it all based off of the behavior. And then what I did is I said, okay, here's my program. Here's all the elements. They're coming in for a webinar. How do I take these elements and create a really good offer? So I said, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give them phase 3 and that's it. So I said, okay, guys, here's what I have for you. I have our 7-figure framework. We're going to help craft a webinar with you. We're going to help test the problems. We're going to help test the messaging. I'm also going to help you drive leads because I have ad training here that I'm going to show you how to craft the best creatives, the best ads, the best copy that has worked for me, creating millions of dollars over the last 3 years. And we're going to give you all of our launch emails, $5,000 or whatever the price is. And as you probably realize, well, Brandon, that doesn't include everything, all the elements. You're right, because here's what I said next. And if you enroll today, here's what I'm going to give you as a bonus. I'm going to give you 6 months of my NGM Plus program for free, which means I'm going to give you one-on-one calls, bi-weekly calls with me. I'm going to give you our phase 1 and our phase 2. And I went into the details of what phase 1 and phase 2 are. And I said, this is a $10,000 offer that you're getting absolutely for free if you just get into the webinar training today. So again, it's the same program. Nothing changes in my program. Everything about the offer, how I presented the program, changed and shifted because of the messaging that was in the funnel. That's the secret. Most people have it backwards. They try to take the course and sell the course. Stop doing that. Figure out the problems you solve, put out content around it, figure out what works, build a funnel off of that, maneuver your offer around to be relevant to that, be the solution to that. And then you can offer really great offers by moving elements around. But everyone gets so stuck on, this is my course and this is everything I know and I got to sell it that way. No, you don't. Stop doing that. You don't have to do it anymore. So that's phase 3, right? Figuring out the messaging and the way to do that. Again, in this bootcamp that we have coming up, it's going to be a 6 to 8 week thing. There's going to be more calls beyond that. I'm going to help you guys piece all this stuff together. This is our business building bootcamp. We're going to do it for free when you enroll in Business by Design. Okay. Number 3 is high converting sales. So we've crafted 7-figure webinars in workshops. We've done 3 of them at this point in the last 2-ish or so years. We've created multiple 6-figure courses and programs as well. And what I can tell you is that there is a science to crafting live presentations or funnels or challenges or video series that create demand and do high amounts of sales. And the number one thing is we don't teach too much. And that's what most people do, is you teach too much. So we have something called the Persuasive tutorial that we like to use. I'm not going to go into the full detail of what that is here. However, I'm going to give you a couple elements of what it takes and what's included in it. So we have the intro of the actual presentation. So the intro, the webinar or the workshop or the video series or the challenge or whatever it may be. And what you want to do there is kind of reiterate the title, the promise, which should be a tangible promise, which we'll talk about in bootcamp. The next thing that you're going to want is going to be the problems that they're experiencing and telling them it's going to end. And then any social proof you can provide as well. Then what we want to do is go into a diagnosis stage. So if you remember my example with the doctor, basically talked about how you had that stomach pain. No doctors knew what it was. Then the doctor came in and said, this is your problem. This is why it's happening. Da, 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 da. They diagnosed you is what they did. So we want to take that same concept and actually put it in the beginning of the webinar. The reason why we want to do that is because we get your audience to subconsciously go, oh, that's me. This is me. This is relevant to me. This is what I'm dealing with. This person gets me. And it also creates a demand to work with you and a solution right in the beginning of the webinar. Okay. Then what we do is we go into what I call the persuasive tutorial. There's a couple steps to this. I'm going to give you 4 of them right now. And there's a couple more. But basically, you're going to say what the promise of the step is, what the step actually is. You're going to teach the step, and then you're going to give a counterexample, story, or metaphor analogy to back up the step. So let me give you an example. If I crafted a video titled How to Create Engaging Content, and I knew step one was the title, here's how I would do it. I would start with the promise. All right. So in this step right now, I'm going to show you how to craft a title that's so persuasive, you're going to be able to get anyone to stop the scroll and automatically click if they're the person who this video is relevant for. So that's the promise. Step number one is how to craft really persuasive tutorials. So here's what you need to do. Include this, 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 and this. And then I'm going to back it up. So I'll say, let's look at this video of Gary Vaynerchuk right here. It has 2 million views. He did exactly what I said. So he did this right here, did this right here, did this right here. Or you go into a metaphor or a story or analogy or an example. The example can't be your own case study, but some sort of example. So people go like, oh my God, I can see that live in action. Because what that does is it gets the subconscious mind to go, oh my God, like that's me. This works. I understand it. I see it. The subconscious mind doesn't doubt it. There's proof right there. The subconscious mind goes, okay, this works. Then what we do at the end is obviously go into a pitch. What I like to do is, because people came into your webinar from one specific problem, you start to reveal all the other problems that happen that your course can fix or your program can fix, and you move into the pitch. So you'd be like, hey guys, today in this webinar, I gave you one framework on how to create engaging content. Problem is engaging content by itself is not going to help. We need high converting content. We need connection content. There's also only one framework. You need all the frameworks. Otherwise it's going to lose its effectiveness. We need to show you how to also sell on webinars. And that's what our program is here to do. Not only fix the one problem you had today, but all these other problems I know you have. So then we move into the pitch and we have a process for that. Okay. Now, after that, here's what I recommend to everyone, especially in today's day and age. I don't care what price point you sell your stuff at. You should be doing sales calls. I don't care if you sell your product for $1. If you are not able to sell it for $1, get your butt on a call, start having conversations with people. We have a process that works really well on how to close sales calls, how to get people to book sales calls. We have a whole process on how to get DMs on people on a book a call, how to construct those calls. Here's the main things that you need to do a subconscious close. So if you're going to get people on a call, I'm going to break it down to a very simple 3-step process. Number one, build rapport. So this is probably pretty simple, probably not groundbreaking. You probably know you need to build rapport in order to sell. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. You just need to connect with them. But then we move into a discovery phase. And the discovery phase is the most important part of your call. A discovery phase is to learn more about what they're dealing with, but it's designed to overcome objections. What I mean by this is, if you know that you constantly get an objection of, I need to talk to my wife about this or my husband about this investment. When you make the offer, that's what you get all the time. In the discovery phase, you're going to add a question along the lines of, how do you make business decisions? Do you have a partner? Do you have a spouse that you run things by? And if they say no, then great. You don't have to worry about it. Because if they say later in the call, oh, I got to talk to my wife about it or my husband about it, you can say, well, I asked you earlier when you said all business decisions are actually just you. You don't have to talk to anyone. Why do we need to talk about this one? In the discovery phase, if they say, yes, I do talk to my wife or my husband about this or a business partner, the next question you could ask is like, well, what happens if they say no? Does it mean you're not going to enroll in the program, even though you said that you know it's going to help? And so you want to start asking these questions in the discovery phase. So you have to start paying attention to the objections that you get. Then you start to ask all these other questions. Another question might be, or objection you get all the time is, well, I have to wait. The timing's not right. Or I need to wait until the kids go back to school or whatever it may be. So what you start asking in the discovery phase is, well, why now? Why are you interested in fixing this now? And they'll literally tell you why they want to do it now. So when you get the objection later in the call, you just say, well, when I asked you why now, this is what you said. So are we more focused on like when the kids go back to school, or do we want to get this problem solved now, like you said earlier on the call? So the discovery phase is the most important part, because if you do it correctly and you fine tune it over time, you have ammunition to overcome any objection. The discovery phase is literally designed to help you overcome an objection. So the next one is the pitch. So the next thing after that is going to be the pitch. So we have a 2-step process that we use for the pitch. And I'll go into more detail in our boot camp on how to do this and how to like perfect it. But really what we want to do is two things. We want them to buy in to our process, not the product. So you need to get them to buy into the process first. And then once they are like, yeah, the process is what I need, then you move them into the product. So here's how we make sure that you are successful with this process is here's the product, here's the calls, and you go into the details. Then you can ask them, what their thoughts are, if they think this is the right fit, if they want to join, and then you wait for any objections. Then you get the objections, and then you just use what you got in the discovery phase to overcome those objections. And what we have found is even if you're doing, selling a product for $1, the subconscious close phase is so powerful, not only for closing, but it's going to move your conversion rate up, but it's also great for discovery, meaning that it's going to help you discover what objections to use in your messaging. So maybe there's an objection that comes up all the time. Guess what? Incorporate training inside the webinar to overcome that objection so it doesn't even come up on the calls anymore. And this is how we become really powerful with our messaging is everything I just outlined for you, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger over time. All four of these things work together and they just get better and better and better. So the more you master it, the more you focus on it, the easier it is to sell. The bigger your brand gets, the more sales you start to make. And so again, I want to bring you through a sped up version of this in 6 to 8 weeks. We can get through the most of this. And obviously, are you going to figure everything out and get it 100% in 6 to 8 weeks? No. But are you going to see massive improvement what's the word I'm looking for? Improvement and traction in the 6 to 8 weeks? Hell yeah. Why? Because I'm giving you a guided step-by-step mentorship for 6 to 8 weeks to take you through these processes where there's training. I'm going to go into the details of everything. You get to ask me questions. And again, I'm doing it absolutely for free, plus all this other stuff that we're giving you. We're going to edit a video for you. We're going to give you other one-on-one or not one-on-one calls, other workshops that you can go through as well. We're going to talk about ads. We're going to talk about messaging. We're going to talk about all of it. So if you feel like having a mentor for this business building process, who's built out multiple products, been through Business by Design, has success in both building agencies, group coaching programs, and courses, then this is the right spot for you. Not only that, if you join us today in this round, and I promote Business by Design again, which I usually do every year, you get to come to next year's boot camp as well for free. There's no cost in it. So what we do for everyone who's bought in BBD through us in the past, you get all the workshop related bonuses for free every year that we do. So get in. This is absolutely free. This is the only business building thing I offer every single year, and it's going away. So that's brandonlucero.com/BBD. So with that being said, I would appreciate any sort of review you want to leave online. Hopefully it's a positive one. We haven't had one in a while, so it'd be great to see your guys' feedback, and I would be so grateful for that. And if you have any questions on Business by Design or anything, just reach out to me on Instagram at I am Brandon Lucero. I will personally reply back with some voice notes and help you make an educated decision if this is the right fit for you. So with that said, take care, and I'll talk to you all very soon.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.